This celebrity interview is sponsored by Fuego's Steak, Tapas, Vegan. And welcome back to the Restaurant Show. Today we are joined by award-winning chef and restaurateur chef Seamus Mullen, who is here to share his tips and tricks for creating restaurant-quality recipes at home at any night of the week. Well, how are you there, chef?
I'm doing well. How are you doing?
Pretty good, pretty good. So, a lot of folks, they like to eat out because, they enjoy trying new foods and they enjoy having foods prepared for them. But, that can get to be kind of a cost for some folks. And so is there a way that people can have restaurant quality food at home any night of the week? And what are your tips for that?
Sure. All you got to do is win the lottery and get a private chef to come over and cook for you all the time.
Oh, well, you're hired then.
No, I'm just kidding. It's really not as difficult as you might think. A few simple tricks and tips and you'll be cooking at home just like a professional chef in no time. One of the things that I love to always remind folks is that it's super important to start with the best quality ingredients you can. You can't make good food with bad ingredients. You got to start with the best stuff. And I'm a big fan of pork. I cook a lot of pork in my restaurants for a variety of reasons. I mean, one, it's super flavorful. People love it, but it's also a really healthy choice for healthy fats and healthy proteins. It's super versatile. A lot of things you can do with it. My go-to pork is Smithfield Prime. It's super juicy and delicious. And it's just a great way to build a whole meal. So if you start with a really good ingredient and then you can kind of riff on that and you can improv. I always tell people, don't get too hung up on a recipe. A recipe is a good place to start, but then just work with what you have. If you don't have all the ingredients in the recipe, or if you don't like a certain ingredient that's in a recipe, you can feel free to kind of improv and to put your own personality into a dish.
That's good to know, because a lot of people are good at following recipes, but they sort of lack the courage to try something new and to put their own flavor.
They get hung up. They're like, oh, I don't have cinnamon. I gotta throw this out. I can't do the whole thing. Yeah, it's important. Just don't be totally didactic about it. You can just play around with what you have in the pantry and use your own creativity.
Absolutely. So, what recipes have you brought with you today?
So I've got a bunch of different recipes that I put together today using all different cuts of pork. As I said, I love using pork, so I want to highlight all the different cuts of the pork. We have some pork chops. Now these are a maple and mustard glazed pork chop. They're roasted with braised mushrooms. Mushrooms and pork go really well together, and then having that mustard gives a little spiciness, and then the sweetness of the maple kind of mellows that out. It's a really nice balance. I also have a spice-crusted pork tenderloin. Tenderloin is the leanest cut of pork, so you want to be really gentle when you cook it. You don't want to overcook it because it'll get really dry. And remember, it's fine for it to be a little bit pink in the middle with a pork tenderloin. That means that it's really it's nice and juicy and moist. So this pork tenderloin is with some spaghetti squash, raisins, and pine nuts, which gives it a really nice sort of sweet and sour thing going on. It's a great simple dish to make. And then I have some Brussels sprouts. I don't know about you, but I love Brussels sprouts. I can't get enough of them. And Brussels sprouts and pork are a match made in heaven. So there's some pork belly. Instead of using bacon, I'm using fresh pork belly with the Brussels sprouts. And that's going to be a little rich, so I want to cut that with something that'll kind of lean it out a little bit. And so I have some pomegranate seeds, which has got some sweetness and also a little bit of acidity, and then the jalapenos. That's a good trick. If you're doing something that's kind of rich, you want to use something that's kind of sharp to slice through that richness. That could be acid or it could be a little bit of spice. But right now it's the height of the summer. To me, it's all about grilling, and it's all about tomatoes, and it's all about bountiful produce. So these are some pork steaks that have been grilled with a little bit of tomato and olive relish. I've got fresh herbs in there as well, and then some summer greens. Super simple, but really captures the flavors of summer.
Wow, you sure you can't fly out to Madison real quick and just bring some of that over to us here at the station? That'd be awesome.
I'll just jump on a plane in just a few minutes. And see
okay, we'll see you in a bit. So obviously we know you as a chef and restaurateur. How do you come up with new dish ideas for your restaurants?
So, we always start with a principal ingredient. So if it's a protein, as we're talking about pork right now, it could be a cut of pork, and then we think about what's the best way to cook it. If you've got, say, pork tenderloin, for instance, which I mentioned before is really tender but doesn't have much fat and it's super lean, if you were to roast that in the oven at high temperature or for a long period of time, it's just not going to do well at all. So we like to think of what's the best way to cook it. In the case of pork tenderloin, pan roasting it or lightly grilling it is a great way of doing it. So we start by thinking about what is the best application for that particular protein. And then we want to really accentuate that. And to me, the best way to get ideas around produce to go along with it is to go to the farmer's market and see what's in season. Talk to the farmers, get a sense as to what is best. If you've got a local farmer's market, I guarantee you if you go and talk to them, they'll be super proud of whatever their best product is. So if it's, you know, I know you guys in the Midwest, you've got great corn, you've got cherries coming in pretty soon, and peaches, and a lot of great orchards. So that's kind of stuff that you go to the farmer's market or farm stand, you talk to your local producer, they're going to tell you what's best. And then you'll learn a little bit about what's going on in your area, and it's great to cook seasonally and locally as much as possible. That's when things are going to taste the best. It's also when they're going to be the most nutritious. And then a simple trick to kind of make things really take them to another level is to use fresh herbs. You know, people tend to buy, maybe they'll buy a clamshell of fresh herbs at home or at the supermarket and they won't use them again. So what I like to do is I like to have little potted plants of fresh herbs that I'm growing in the kitchen and just snip off a little bit, throwing it in at the very end, and that adds a really bright vibrancy to the dish.
I think it was Julia Child who said you don't need to cook fancy recipes, just good food with fresh ingredients.
And that lots of love.
And lots of love, and that definitely speaks to that for sure. So totally real quick before we go, Seamus, where can we go for more information about all these great recipes?
You can get all of these recipes that I put together if you go to smithfield.com/primechefs, and you can get a complete list of all the Prime Chef partners with tons of other recipes and lots of cooking ideas to make these restaurant quality dishes at home and see that it's not nearly as difficult as it might seem.
All right, the one and only Chef Seamus Mullen, thank you so much for being with us here today on the Restaurant Show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
And there's more to come on the Restaurant Show, so stick with us. This celebrity interview was sponsored by Fuego's Steak Tapas Vegan.